This is Magic Talk with Chris Lynch. So the Queen has started to mark quite significant celebrations for the Platinum Jubilee. And joining me to discuss this is Monarchy New Zealand Chair Dr. Sean Palmer. Sean, good morning and thanks so much for your time this morning.
Good morning.
This is significant news, isn't it? And in some respects, it's actually quite positive. And boy, do we need some positive news at the moment.
Well, I think so. I mean, that's one of the nice things about the monarchy is that it does bring a lot of positive news into our lives now and then, and this is a good example of that. You know, this is acknowledging a woman who has served in her role for 7 decades. I mean, that's longer than most people have their careers. And this is not a paid role. This is not a job. This was not something she asked for or could retire from. This is the life that she was born into. And it's remarkable what an incredible job she has done for 70 years.
I was speaking to a royal commentator about a month ago and was talking to him about the fact that the Queen herself represents some kind of stability in a world where we actually need that right now, whether you're a monarchist, whether you're a royal fan or otherwise.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think in general, people do crave a degree of stability. Even if they are looking for change, and, you know, that's perfectly healthy, there's still sort of a stable platform from which we can work, you know, to improve our lives.
And I think we need that right now. Talk to me about this, the celebrations. How significant will this be for not just the royal family, but for the British public?
Well, it is going to be very significant for the British public. That's very true. My primary focus, though, is very much on New Zealand. And so I'm interested in how this will affect the New Zealand public. And I think we're not going to see huge outpourings of excitement or energy, but we'll see a fairly relaxed Kiwi way of appreciating what's happening. It is a life of service that we're acknowledging, and a record that virtually no one has ever surpassed before. And, you know, she is as much the Queen of New Zealand as she is the Queen of the United Kingdom. And I think this is a great opportunity for New Zealand to seize that and to ensure that some of the world takes note that, you know, she belongs to us as much as she does to Australia or Canada or the UK. And that's always good for New Zealand to have some of that world spotlight shine on us a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I get the sense, in fact, I was quite surprised Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern put out a press release thanking the Queen for her service. And it was very complimentary, given the fact that it seems like our times are changing for better or worse, where some people like to dismiss the monarch as being old-fashioned, too traditional, and not fitting with New Zealand. So I personally was surprised by that statement that the Prime Minister put out. Were you surprised?
Well, no, I wasn't surprised. I think, you know, the Queen's personal popularity, and indeed the monarchy's institutional popularity, is incredibly high. Most political leaders would be desperate for the levels of support that the Queen enjoys. So I think it does behoove a lot of political leaders to be involved. But that said, I think the Prime Minister's message was quite genuine. Whatever one's view of the monarchy might be, it's hard to disparage a 95-year-old woman who's given 70 years of service. So I think it was quite appropriate. I was very pleased that she did it. And yeah, well, we'll see. I think we'll see a little bit more of that over the coming weeks and months from leaders all over the world.
Of course, no doubt you probably are aware that the Māori Party does this probably every time there's Waitangi Day, but, you know, calls to not just rename New Zealand, but also get rid of the so-called monarch or the Commonwealth. What's your response to that?
Well, I must say, I thought it was the most creative interpretation of contract law I've ever come across. It sounded to me as though they were advocating abolishing one of the partners in the Treaty of Waitangi, which is generally not something that happens in contracts and partnerships. So I'm not exactly sure where they're going with that. Um, I kind of suspect that at the moment the monarchy is getting quite a bit of attention around the Platinum Jubilee, and I think perhaps they were keen to pick up on a bit of that themselves.
Quite possibly. Do you ever worry that the relevancy of the British establishment may start to become irrelevant as the years go on?
Well, see, and this is very similar to what you were asking before about how this will affect the British public. Again, I'm not particularly concerned about the British public or the British establishment. I think the British establishment is completely irrelevant in New Zealand. I don't think they have any connection at all. Um, I think what sustains the monarchy in New Zealand is New Zealanders, and the fact that the monarchy as a constitutional structure is right at the heart of the way this country is governed. It is, the foundation. And it would be unwise for somebody to come and remodel the house by just knocking down the foundation. That's not a good strategy for, reconstruction. So I think in terms of how relevant it is to New Zealand. I mean, that's really the question. And we know it is the bedrock of the Constitution. It is an integral part of the Treaty of Waitangi. We know that members of the royal family are personally very popular, but we know that this system of government is exceptionally successful. New Zealand has one of the world's longest unbroken records of democracy. And that can also be said of Australia and Canada and the UK, many monarchies in Europe. It's for some reason, constitutional monarchy is a very successful safeguard for democracy. And I think the anti-establishment movement of the 1960s, where we should knock down everything, I think we've kind of passed through that. I'm always amazed by the number of young people in New Zealand who say, well, now, hang on a minute, I'd like to know more about why our system is the way it is. What brilliant aspects function? We so often reduce the issue to should we get rid of them or should we not? But there are so much more involved. And I think we're seeing sort of a resurgence over the last 10 or 15 years of people saying, this works really well. And you can't always count on that in governments around the world.
And like I said before, is that simply because what the Queen, what the Commonwealth represents, what the system that represents in New Zealand is stability? And at a time like now, more than ever, do we need that?
Yeah, look, I think stability is a very important part. I mean, the monarchy has a track record of being able to evolve. A good example of that is if we were to go back 20 years, the eldest male would inherit the throne, even if he was younger than an older sister. And in 2012, New Zealand and Australia and Canada and the UK, 15 countries got together and said, that's really sexist. We need to fix that. And we simply passed the legislation to fix that. So we now have in this country a 50-50 chance of a head of state being male or female. That's a lot better than most countries have in terms of the odds. But it's part of a slow evolutionary process. Sometimes maybe a little slower than we would like, but that stability allows change gradually. And I mean, if I was going to say one of the great strengths of the monarchy in terms of protecting democracy, it is to have a monarch, an individual who's been raised from birth to believe that it is their responsibility to protect the democracy of New Zealand or the UK or Australia or Canada. Rightly or wrongly, the Queen has been raised with that belief, and that is paramount in her mind, that it is a role of service to these people. It's not something to be lorded over the common subjects, that the Queen would never behave that way. We've never seen that in 70 years. And I think the message that she put out today in preparing for this Platinum Jubilee speaks volumes, particularly the last line, which she wrote by hand, and said, "Your servant, Elizabeth," which is extraordinary. There's a humility there, and there's a commitment to helping people, first and foremost, more than a party, more than policy.
Mm. Dr. Sean Palmer, what would you like to see New Zealanders do to celebrate this incredible milestone this year? Or is there something perhaps that you and your organisation are putting on?
Well, again, I think very often New Zealand tends to go for a slightly quieter celebratory nature. We know that the British will do a huge pageant and a parade in June when the weather is better for them. And that's fine. The British do that pageantry very well. I'm optimistic that we'll have a member of the royal family come down this year as to do a bit of a tour of the country, and I think New Zealanders generally turn out in significant numbers for that.
Yeah, they do. They did for Camilla and Charles in
Yeah,
Christchurch.
repeatedly. I mean, I'm always amazed at the media's astonishment. They always write the crowds were so much bigger than we imagined each time, and that never really seemed to learn. But I think more than anything, this is just an opportunity to reflect on what a remarkable country New Zealand is, what an extraordinary system of government it has. Nobody in New Zealand wakes up and says, "Gosh, I hope the Constitution holds up today. Gosh, I hope the rule of law remains functional." That's not true for a lot of people when they wake up in the morning, and we're very fortunate about that. I think we'll see some people will write to the Queen, and I always encourage that. There is always a response from the palace. I think it's a great opportunity for New Zealanders to learn a bit about the system. It's a great excuse. They say, "What are you going to do for the Queen's birthday?" And I say, "I'm going to get a cake because she'd want me to have a cake." Well, here's an opportunity for the 70th Jubilee. Let's get a cake.
Nothing wrong with getting a cake. Just one final question, Dr. Sean Palmer. And when I was doing a Google search, as you do, on the Queen, the first thing, as you can imagine, comes up is Camilla.
Mm-hmm.
What is your response to the news that the Queen is almost given the blessing of Camilla to have some kind of title, whether it's Queen or something else? What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was part of the message that she wrote to everyone just today. And I actually think it shows a degree of grace in that she's, at the center of all of this 70 years and all of the attention that will be lavished on her, and rightly so. She's still trying to reflect it a little bit onto Charles to say that he's coming, and I hope that the public will treat him as kindly as they have treated her. That's nice. And she's done that for Camilla as well. And when Camilla married into the royal family in about 2005, it wasn't really clear to people what sort of an individual she was, how committed she would be to the institution, how much volunteer work she would undertake. It wasn't so sure. So at the time, they suggested that perhaps rather than calling her Queen at some point in the future, Queen Consort, they'll just call her Princess Consort. And I suppose, they were turning down a grander title. But I think what we've seen in the last 15 or 20 years is just how committed to the institution Camilla is, how hardworking she is, how supportive she is to Prince Charles and the tremendous work that he does. And I think the Queen is just saying, the norm is for the wife of a king to be a queen consort. And we don't need to make any changes for Camilla and downgrade her to a princess consort or anything. There's no need. We can see how committed she is to these countries that she works for. And I think she's probably quite right. I think it's a reasonable thing to say that while for 70 years we've had a queen and a prince consort, at some point in the future, we will have a king and a queen again. We will have the king and queen of New Zealand.
I'll tell you one thing, the media has turned for the better on Camilla, haven't they? They like her, they respect her, and she's highly likable with some of the video clips you see, and I think that's really helped her popularity. She's very likable, and every person from Christchurch who was lucky enough or fortunate enough to meet Camilla was just glowing about how down to earth but graceful she was, and that's something I think it took the media a lot of time to do, or to at least reflect that, didn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, she was coming out from behind Princess Diana, who
Mm.
had an instant celebrity about her and sort of a star quality, which not everybody has, and which I think Camilla would agree she does not have. She has sort of gained the public's affection simply through hard work. You know, nobody really asks what gown is Camilla wearing, what handbag is Camilla carrying, but they do cover, which charity she's working for, which school she's visiting, and that's quite a laudable trait. You know.
I agree. Really nice to get your insight and really appreciate your time this morning. Monarchy New Zealand Chair Dr. Sean Palmer, thank you so much and happy celebrations.
Thank you, and to you and the rest of New Zealand as well.